Hey guys, it's Nikki here. Sorry for the long break. Still having motivation issues, especially now that my energy has gone kaput. Now that I'm about a month out from my due date. Please ignore the crib mattress in the background. We are getting basement renovations done, so there's not a lot of room to put our baby stuff right now. There's just a lot going on. But today I'm here to do the mid-year freakout tag. I will include a link for the video for the original creator, my video from last year, and a list of the prompts in the description below for you to check out if you're interested. With that, I will go right into the questions here. So the first one is, what is the best book you've read this year? For me, it was The Rose Code by Kate Quinn. I am a huge sucker for women in historical fiction, especially strong women, and you get that in spades here. It looks at the women of Bletchley Park by following 3 specific points of view and what they did in terms of code breaking in general, and more specifically working against the Enigma machine that the Germans were using for their encoding. The second prompt is the best sequel. Given that I haven't read a lot of books this year, it means I also haven't read a lot of sequels this year. My favorite so far is Nemesis Game by James S.A. Corey. This is, I don't know, book like 4 or 5 in the Expanse series. I've been making my way slowly through this series using audiobooks at work. They're really engaging, they're really easy to read and listen to. And of the sequels for this one that I've listened to this year, which I think there's been 2 of them, this is the one I've enjoyed the most of those 2. The next prompt is the one that always makes me feel attacked, and it is, what new releases haven't you read but you want to? In my defense, this first one, A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers, is only a recent release, and I didn't win the Goodreads giveaway for one of the arcs, so it's a recent release. I've given myself a little bit of leeway there. Next one I want to read is Book Eaters by Sun Yi Dean. This one is about a woman who's part of a family who consumes books to help survive, and her son has a slightly more malicious, malignant version of that skill, and the book is kind of about her dealing with that from the sounds of it. I don't really know too much more than that, but it sounded really interesting. And then the third one I'm looking forward to is The Retreat by Sarah Pierce. I read The Sanatorium by her earlier this year and very much enjoyed it. I'm excited to pick this one up as well. It's a female detective. I don't usually love detective stories, but I enjoyed the thriller, kind of almost supernatural, gothic feel to The Sanatorium, and I'm hoping that The Retreat is the same because it was a very fun experience. My biggest disappointment of 2022 so far. Last year, I remember struggling with this one because if I didn't like books, I was just starting to put them down. This year, I feel more compelled to finish because I've been reading less. And The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. Despite hearing it wasn't awesome, I picked it up anyways, given that it has a really cool kind of gothic atmosphere, and there were other things going on that I think would have been really intriguing, but the execution of the story just wasn't for me. The writing was beautiful, but the story as a whole just ended up falling flat for me at the end. I should have listened to all of those reviews that I heard saying it wasn't great, because the issues I had ended up being issues they talked about. The next prompt is the biggest surprise of your 2022 reading, and that was actually Malibu Rising. For whatever reason, I had in my head that I wasn't going to like it, and I think it's because I loved The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, didn't love but didn't hate Daisy Jones and the Six, and then have been putting off this one. And I should have picked it up earlier because I loved it. I think it's the only book I gave over. I gave it 4.5 out of 5. The only book that's rated higher than this one this year has been The Rose Code. So, just to give you an idea of what my reading year has been like. Next is my favorite new author. It can be debut or new to you. It's a new to me author this year, and that's Emily Henry. I picked up beach reads earlier this year. Loved it. It was light, it was fluffy, it was romantic, it was everything that I would want in a contemporary romance, including how they deal with certain tropes, and I'm hoping that this one, her next ones will be the same, but I loved it. It was a great experience, exactly what I needed. Newest fictional crush. Don't have one. Been busy growing a baby, living with my husband. I haven't really looked at characters that way this year. Newest favorite character, Nina Riva, going back to Malibu Rising. She was just very, I don't want to say relatable, because the things that were going on in her life are not things I had to deal with, but she was very engaging, and I loved reading from her perspective and watching her grow and just deal with the things in her life. It was a very, very touching experience watching her grow up and then the outcome. Next prompt is, what book has made you cry? At this point, almost every book has made me cry. Pregnancy hormones for the win, I guess. So really any book that I've even talked about here today has probably made me cry. Next is a book that made you happy, and that was Finley Donovan is Killing It by Ella Casamano. It was a comedy, cozy mystery that had Sophie Kinsella and Jane Costello vibes, which sounds weird but was super entertaining. I really got behind it and was really digging the story and Finley Donovan and her sitter, Vero. The next is the most beautiful book cover that you've bought. I haven't really bought a lot of books this year. I've done a couple small hauls, but nothing in there really stood out. But the most beautiful book I've read this year, in my opinion, was The Moon of Reflected Water, or The Order of the Pure Moon Reflected in Water. I'll put the cover up somewhere on screen. And then finally, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? There are a lot of them that I just would love to get off my TBR, or just new releases I'm particularly excited about, or books on my TBR I'm pretty excited about. They are A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. As mentioned earlier, it's one of my most anticipated new releases of this year. After that is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. Emily Henry is probably, at the moment, my most loved new author, and I'm really hoping that if this book goes well, I'll go back and read People on Vacation and then some of her other backlog and see if she becomes an auto-buy author for me. And then the final one I want to read is This Is Your Brain on Birth Control by Sarah E. Hill. I work in the women's health field. Women's health is super important to me, and I'm hoping that this will bring more education for myself, just in the field in general, and things that I have learned in school that isn't necessarily friendly or helpful. And women's health is just very close to my heart because of this, and just always needs more literature and more people raising the call to equality in terms of healthcare. So I'm hoping this book is going to help push me in that direction. That is all I have here for you for the mid-year freakout. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry it's been a month. It wasn't intentional, but I do have a vlog coming out soon, so hopefully that'll be up on the channel before too long too. See ya!